Talk to the Missouri Budget Project Board Chairperson, Bill Ricker. Bill, there was a story yesterday in which your foundation put out a survey, says that Missouri is shortchanging school districts in every part of the state by an average of $700 per student every year. Good morning to the show, and what does that mean?
Yes, well, good morning. Thank you for inviting us to be on the show. Well, what that means is that the Missouri is underfunding its schools by a total of $656 million in this school year. And by underfunding, I mean that the legislature 10 years ago came up with a formula which said we need to adequately fund schools so every student gets at least a minimum education. And when you run the numbers, the number this year comes out that they are underfunding their own formula by $656 million. And that comes out to an average about $700 per student around the state.
What I find fascinating in this is the number is interesting, but it's a different number because you broke it down to the St. Louis region versus rural Missouri.
Yes, we broke it down actually by school district. You know, Missouri has 520 school districts, and the state doesn't do this, but we used their numbers, and we went through and redid the formula, and we came up with a chart which is available online for everyone to take a look at that will show you exactly how much every school district is underfunded. And it is remarkable the difference in the variation around the state, and we don't know the reason for this yet. We're going to take a look at that. But even within the St. Louis area, there's a great difference. St. Louis City, for instance, which is one school district, underfunds its schools by $317 per student. St. Charles County underfunds, they don't underfund it, the state formula underfunds this year by $780 per student. And, of course, the difference is dramatic. It's $12 million for St. Louis City and $41 million total for St. Charles County and $70 million for St. Louis County. So we're talking about.
So what you're saying is what is so interesting in all of this is that the state is underfunding the schools in St. Charles more than they're underfunding the schools in St. Louis City.
Yes, but I don't think the state is not doing that intentionally. That's just the way the formula and the way it's being applied works out. But what's important is the fact that it's being underfunded, whether it's being underfunded by $1 or by $100 or nearly $1,000. The fact is we are not investing in our children and in our schools. And we talk about the need to have economic growth in Missouri, and we need an educated workforce to do that. Certainly we need that in the 21st century. Well, then we need to take a better look at how are we going to fund our schools to at least the adequate level that the legislature said we should be doing it at, and they're not. Now,
okay.
I am not saying that the legislature is intentionally underfunding schools because they don't like schools. There's a real issue of revenue in this state and in almost every other state.
But Bill, I find it. I mean, you can find things in this that I don't really find all that interesting. But I find it fascinating that you have a formula, and the formula is applied indiscriminately throughout the area. So, why is it that schools are underfunded at different levels? Because $700 per student is a lot more than $300 a student.
Oh, it is, and when you take in account the number of students, it becomes a dramatic difference.
Right. So why is that?
Of dollars between districts in one county. We don't know the answer to that. We're going to look into that. We're going to see if we can figure out why is it that there's this great variation between schools. Let me give you an example. Be sure I get the right county here. In St. Louis County, Hazelwood is underfunded by $854 a student, but Brentwood is underfunded by $36 a student. There's an $820 dollar per student difference within one county.
This formula, I mean, it isn't as simple as pi r squared. It's a very complex formula.
It is complex.
But and there are all sorts of pieces, including property taxes. So
Yes.
does in that one scenario, does Hazelwood not collect enough in property taxes as opposed to Brentwood, or is this all more state funding issue problems with the formula?
This is state issues, but as you pointed out, the formula is somewhat complex, and the amount of local effort, which would include, of course, local taxes, property taxes, but also the wealth factor within a county or a school district, that would also come into play.
Yeah. It also.
And I don't know the exact reason, but included in the formula is cost of living adjustments. It costs far more to live in St. Louis than it does out in a rural area around the Lake of the Ozarks, for instance. And so all that, and weighted daily attendance, it all comes into effect into a rather, as you pointed out, a complex formula. But the formula comes out with these significantly diverse amounts of money that the state is underfunding. But the important part is everybody is being underfunded.
Is there a school district that is being funded at its projected levels or at its correct levels? Sounds like Brentwood.
No school district that gets 100% of the funding you would expect by applying the formula.
Right. It also is interesting that this question might get me into some trouble because there are some great schools in the city of St. Louis. By and large, the city of St. Louis schools are partially accredited. They're funded at a higher rate than the St. Charles schools, and the St. Charles schools are doing better. So in some instances, money doesn't matter because the St. Charles schools are being funded less and doing better.
Well, certainly that would appear to be the case. I don't know what the individual schools are. You have to look at the individual school districts within St. Charles. Now, as I said, St. Louis City is one school district, and it's at $317 underfunded per student. You'd have to look at the individual schools and the individual school districts, I should say, within St. Charles to see what they look like. And people can take a look at all of this. They can see where their school district falls. They can see where each county comes in. If they go to MoBudget, www.mobudget.org, right on the very home page of that website, they can find this report, they can read it, and they can see exactly what was done and what it shows and how the study was performed.
Really interesting stuff. Bill, will you come back when you do another one and find out why this formula is being underfunded?
We would be happy to do that.
You got it. The website is mobudget.org, mobudget.org. Bill Recker is our guest, the Missouri Budget Project Board Chair. Bill, thanks for some interesting stuff.
Thank you very much.
731, Big 550,